Today I'll be going through the entire Xeno franchise, Xenogears, Xenosaga and Xenoblade, every single title released from worst to best, so let's begin! Starting off with Xenoblade Chronicles 2 Torna, the Golden Country. The worst Xeno game in this series is Torna, definitely. A release that was wrongly advertised as an expansion pack when it was actually its own game. Eventually, it did get its own physical release. You already know it's the prequel to the Xenoblade Chronicles 2 game, explaining a lot of its lore. Story feels more serious with less dumb humor, but still maintaining its great fan service. I like the protagonist Laura a lot here. Soundtrack, graphics and combat are top notch within its 10 to 20 hours of playtime. So then why is it the worst Xeno game considering how awesome it is? Because it is completely ruined by the community level, which forces the player to do hours and hours of meaningless side quests just to unlock the final dungeon and final boss. Yep! And if it wasn't for that, this game will honestly be among the first places in the video. What a waste. Next up is Xenosaga Episode 2. This second episode in the Xenosaga trilogy shares a very similar problem as the previous title. One thing ruins it: the combat system. It's a convoluted turn-based mess where you're supposed to stock actions or turns, but the enemy can do the same. Obviously, the enemy AI is an expert at the game, resulting in infuriating spikes since the beginning of the adventure. Still, it's a very story-driven game with strong character development, great visuals, and surprisingly memorable soundtrack, so in those departments, it's a really solid game. Well, okay, sure, the art style and the character models were different and it bothered the consensus, but I honestly didn't hate it. I didn't love it either, though. Everything is good, except for that combat which brought my long and arduous journey to a frustrating conclusion. Moving on to Xenoblade Chronicles 2. First of all, I'd like to say that Torna and Xenosaga 2 should be far better than this game if not for their fatal flaws. This one, truly deserving of being the worst Xeno game ever though, had nothing of the sort. Nevertheless, it has an overabundance of issues that do nothing but hinder the player experience. I'm sure some of you still remember my harsh review of it, and if you don't, I'll be sure to leave it at the end. However, sometime later I found the need to make a second review in order to clarify that I love this game more than hating it, so I still think it's worth playing despite its insane amount of shenanigans. Combat is solid, graphics are beautiful, fan service is excellent, and the soundtrack is simply mind-blowing. In fact, most of my complaints focus only on its navigation and exploration, but other than that, this is still a great JRPG. Xenosaga Episode 1 is next. The beginning of the legendary trilogy. With a slow start, it hooks you in a leisurely way with its mature story and its charming cast of characters. The game's got early PS2 graphics and it shows, but they hold up pretty decently as it aged really well. I wouldn't complain about the music, some of it composed by Yasunori Mitsuda, but I'll admit that the sequels did it better. Balancing issues are there, but nowhere close to the ones on Episode 2, so it still retains acceptable pacing throughout the adventure. Never easy, but never impossible, with the exception of a few boss fights. The combat here does come with some complexity, but never hard to fully comprehend. So all in all, it's a great JRPG, a true classic from the PS2 library, and a symbol of the early 2000s. I just don't feel it's a masterpiece, probably because it needs its sequels to compel the incredible storyline it wanted to achieve, and had they polished the gameplay and battle mechanics a bit more, it would have stood a chance in this video at the fierce fight for the throne. Now we have Xenoblade Chronicles X. Here's another game I have a love-hate relationship with. I played the original and its latest remaster to make enough comparisons for a review. Unfortunately, I was too lazy to make much progress in the latter because most of the issues the former had didn't go away. Again, my main issues revolve around navigation and exploration, especially when the game forces you to survey regions up to a certain percentage before you can progress with the main story or the next chapter. Adding also mandatory affinity levels with every single character, even with the ones you don't care about, that was frustrating to say the least. But anyway, leaving that and other complaints aside, the beauty of this game stands unrivaled. Great story, but with a bigger focus on lore and gameplay. Gorgeous visuals that were even enhanced in the recent remaster. Glorious fan service for sure, but yeah, the silly censorship from the original version is also present in the remaster, meaning sexy outfits for Lyn are censored as well as the removal of breast sliders for every other girl. The music is a mixed bag, but the songs that are good are not only good, are freaking fantastic! And I believe it's got the second best battle system across the entirety of the Xeno franchise. A full comparative review of both versions might be in order for me one day. That is, if I can survive the many nuances a second time with the remaster. Moving up to Xenoblade Chronicles 3. The long-awaited third entry in the Xenoblade saga. This brings out a crushing social metaphor depicting how divided we are as a society thanks to the machinations of corporate evil. Ironically, the same evil that localized the game butchered dialogue and inserted political agendas with some characters. Lame. While the beautiful graphics still suffered the mediocrity of the Switch hardware, the visuals were still outstanding, as obviously the superb soundtrack. Gameplay exploration is top-notch, rid of the penalties, obnoxities, and requirements of all the previous games. I'm thankful for all the quality of life features within it. And I personally believe these games got the absolute best combat system in the entirety of the Xeno series. Yes, it's that good, with your whole party in battle, chain attacks included, and badass new features that made fighting extremely rich. Anyways, because of the terrible localization, I can't rank this game any higher. Alright, the last three, and number 3, Xenoblade Chronicles. I also played both the original and the remaster. I never bothered with the new 3DS port though. A full review focusing on the Switch Definitive Edition can be found here in this channel if you're interested. Well, it's a masterpiece, and it's a legendary classic that does play much better on the Switch. Unfortunately, it suffered from pathetic censorship, cleavage and blood being toned down or removed, as well as religious themes being altered. I never beat the Wii original, however, because I never fully understood the combat system and wasn't a big fan of the graphics or art style. All of that changed on Switch, and this time I took it serious to learn the battle mechanics. The game's beautiful, with vast exploration never forced on you, and a decently implemented GPS system. I think the story is great, like its character development, but not as masterful as its super interesting lore. No need to praise the music, you already know it's also mind-blowing. Number 2, Xenogears. Xenogears is a game that did not age very well, with the exception of its 2D battle system though, which still holds up and it's freaking awesome. The rest failed to withstand the curse of time. Exploration is destroyed by a terrible camera and high encounter rate. The backgrounds look good on some areas but ugly in others. You know what? That's about it. Everything else is absurdly phenomenal, especially the writing, the story, both plot and narrative, the character progression, and the insane amount of devastating plot twists makes Xenogears hold the crown as the absolute best story ever written in a JRPG. Mitsuda's excellency in the musical department is legendary beyond belief here, and the pixel art, animations included, stand out as one of the best of all time. Despite its many flaws, this is a video game you owe to yourself playing at least once. It's a journey like no other out there, even with its rushed development, leaving the developer's vision restrained, but also intact. Number 1, Xenosaga Episode 3. The king of this list is the mighty Xenosaga 3, the epic conclusion to the trilogy and a masterpiece to behold. Nearly every annoyance or mistake from its predecessors is gone, replaced with intuitive gameplay and more engaging combat. Difficulty was rebalanced and now it's hard, but without nasty spikes. I love how the game looks with more advanced graphics going a long way from merely the first episode. I loathe the blood censorship in the North American release though, but the story carries over in a majestic way until the end. It's unbelievable the level of writing on both story, characters and lore. Of course, it doesn't have the same impact if you didn't play episodes 1 and 2 first, as it is indispensable to experience the harsh moments characters go through and the deep emotions the events of this game portrays. This is elevated even more thanks to its beautiful soundtrack. So finally we meet an easy to understand battle system, but one with some twists that make it more engaging as previously mentioned. I know some of you resent the castrating price this PS2 exclusive currently has, but trust me, emulation will probably exceed your expectations, so play it there. You have no excuse. It's hard to digest how good a series can be, only to be butchered and censored overseas. Maybe it's time to learn Japanese so we don't have to put up with the horrible localization, but obviously you already know that's way easier said than done. But anyway, there you go. That's my ranking of the Xeno series from worst to best. Thanks for watching, don't forget to subscribe and share this video with your friends. See you next time!